I'm Denise Bain from Host-telecom, and we're joined for our final broadcast of the day by Glenn Chai, who's the regional manager at Infinities, and they simplify hybrid cloud adoption, and they work with Cloud Fusion, Log Loop, and App Balloon. And I'm just going to turn it over to Glenn and let him tell us a little bit more about what they do with OpenStack Cloud and the kinds of solutions they create.
Thank you. Thank you, Denise. Hello, everybody. My name is Glenn. I'm the regional manager for Infinitisoft. All right. So right now I'm located in Singapore. Just to tell you a bit more on Infinitisoft. So basically we started the company in 2003. So right now we have like 30 headcounts located in Singapore and in Taiwan. So talking about hybrid cloud management, it all started in 2008 because when we all started, we talked about API integration with different clouds. That's on the project basis. So along the years when it comes to 2008, we decided to have our very own software. We call it the Cloud Fusion. So what Cloud Fusion does basically is all about hybrid cloud management. So if we talk about hybrid cloud management, we are talking about managing private cloud as for, let's say, for example, VMware and OpenStack. We call it the private cloud. And along the years, we can see emerging players like AWS, Google, or even Microsoft Azure right now in the market. So we call them the public cloud. And sooner or later, you will see Alibaba Cloud along the way. So in environment like this, all right, we provide a single interface to help you better manage all the virtual resources, all right, within one single interface. Right. When you talk about managing a hybrid cloud environment, we are talking about provisioning, self-service provisioning, orchestration of all those different virtual machines residing in all different environments, getting them orchestrated, and then at the same time generating financial reporting, let's say in terms of financial consumption or financial expenses within the public cloud area, and at the same time technical analysis on all those virtual machines' health status. All right, for the IT managers, they'll be looking at the self-service provisionings, all right, governance or any kind of policies being set, all right, across the virtual machines. Yeah.
That is quite an accomplishment.
Yeah,
and I'm curious, so you're in Singapore and Taiwan right now. Have you expanded into Australia where the summit's being held?
We are still exploring this opportunity because right now we are looking for potential partners within the Asia-Pac regions who is willing to join us within the journey in terms of exploring the market together.
And when are you coming to the United States of America?
Oh, I mean, if there's an opportunity, definitely, yeah.
Everybody wants to know that. So Host-telecom's coming to the United States also, but we are there, but we're not there as fully as we plan to be. So that's another issue for us. So when somebody goes to interact with your interface, can you describe the interface just a bit, or is it so? I imagine it's quite detailed, so right. Can you just tell me a little bit about it? All
right. The interface is pretty simple. Basically, we make it into more user interface in terms of a graphical user interface. So basically, it's more into visual rather than just text and basically text encodings. So it's more in terms of graphics, rhetoric.
So I'm curious, does one need to have coder level ability to be able to use the interface? Yeah, I'm guessing not, because that's the whole point of the interface.
Definitely,
right?
Yeah.
Okay. So could a project manager, for example, get in there and get under the hood of what its cloud details were?
Yeah, of course. Basically, from some of my customer points of view, they wouldn't want to go into the interface unless something really happens.
Right.
Right. For example, the CIO wanted to see some technical reports. Something happened to some VM and the system doesn't work. So they will go inside the system to generate the reports on basically what is happening. Let's say, for the example, another scenario, one of my customers, the CFO, they want to see why is there suddenly a surge in terms of the public cloud spending. So they will go back into the interface, churn out the reports in real time, all right, and submit back to the CFO. So that will justify their so-called in terms of their expenses. Right.
Okay.
All right.
So is it possible that the whole C-suite would be using this tool? Yeah?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. And just looking at Log Loop, I don't know much about Log Loop, but it's an analytics tool. So could you tell me a bit more about that?
As I mentioned earlier on, let's say, for example, the CFO and the CIO, they want to see real-time reporting. Log Loop is basically developed from the open source, we call it the ELK. Elasticsearch, Kibana, and Logstash. So it's basically open source software. So we have further developed from the ELK software to make it our very own log loop. So log loop is basically about log analytics. So as long as you have a virtual machines residing in whether in the hybrid cloud environment, they do push out logs of certain details. So we gather the logs in real time to do the analytics from them. Yeah. So that's more about log loop.
Interesting. And AppBalloon, which is a development flow and ops management platform. So I think you probably touched on it a bit already, but if you want to go into any more detail, we would love to know more.
Of course. The application for log loop, basically, if you look at right now in a real case scenario, on and off there will be patches on operating system within the public cloud, for example, Windows OS. All right, on and off you have patches. So let's say, for example, you have 100 over VMs. How are you going to do the updates one by one? Not really. So where AppBalloon comes into the picture, you can just at a click of the button deploy the patches across all those virtual machines at one click, rather than just one by one.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I think you mentioned this already, but I'm going to ask again because I don't remember. So can you use this tool also with VMware as well as OpenStack? Is it strictly an OpenStack tool, or it's a cloud tool?
No, basically because as long as it's within the cloud environment, it does work on all these different environments. Like what you mentioned, like VMware, OpenStack, those are considered the private cloud area. So it does work on the private cloud area as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about Azure and AWS?
It works as well.
I think you may. I don't know why you're not Super User of the Year, or of the summit.
Super user.
Super User, yeah. You guys should be Super User. Although maybe we would want to compete with you for that. It's been fabulous talking to you, and I'm really excited to dig into what you do a little bit more.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would be extremely interested in having a tool that has that big of a span, and that so many different types of roles can use within a company. And yeah, that's quite a contribution.
Thank you. Yeah,
Thanks,
thank
Glenn.
you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Tomorrow, I will be presenting an object storage presentation about optimizing your data infrastructure to use Swift, OpenStack Swift, and how you should set up before you start an endeavor like that, and some pitfalls that you can avoid that unfortunately several of us ran into and recovered from, but I'm sure you can learn from some serious mistakes that we made. But, live and learn and pass the knowledge on. So that's what we're doing. It's been an awesome second day in Sydney. The sun came out today. We didn't have any monsoons or typhoons or hurricanes like we did yesterday. And, maybe we'll get out while the sun is still out today. And I think we're at the end of our broadcast, and I see my director kind of dancing back and forth and not telling me if we're ending or not. So I think, here he comes. He's going to dance. Here we are, dancing at OpenStack Summit.
Yeah, but by the way, about the dancing, in front of us there is a sushi booth, and they brought here the amazing stuff with a set of 6 musical clips, and I just made a quick chat with their team and found that the majority of people playing and dancing in these clips, they're sushi staff. They're not professional musicians.
That's great. I need to go over and check that out. And actually, now that I look at them, you can tell they're just like regular people.
So yeah, it's really catchy.
It's not a Justin Bieber situation over at the Susa booth. Thank God, I would just say. But that's really awesome. So they've got They've got the Linux penguin, my beloved Linux penguin, doing a tango with their Geeko and getting their groove
The
on.
Geeko is probably the only professional musician in the clip.
Who knew that the Geeko was also a musician?
So we're waiting you tomorrow on our booth and help us to free.
Free Hooper. We had a lovely young man submit a name for Kangi because our intern thought that Kangi was a horrible name for a kangaroo, and Jonas Spector wrote in and suggested suggested Hooper, and Hooper is growing on this stack of business cards, and so we hope to free Hooper tomorrow back into the wild where he belongs.
So you have the only day to support us to free Hooper. And we are inviting you to visit Denise's presentation tomorrow. As she already described, it will be dedicated to the object storage, Swift, OpenStack Swift.
Yeah,
like Bond, James Bond, Swift,
yeah,
OpenStack Swift.
OpenStack Swift. Storage, object storage with Swift. So, and you really do want to pay some attention to the infrastructure underneath that, because you don't just plug another server in when things get big. So you should tune in and find out more about not screwing up your your object storage solutions.
Okay, let's dance for tomorrow, and tomorrow we're waiting you here in International Convention Center in Sydney for the very last day of the OpenStack Summit. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.